think he's keeping here, however. Yeah, he decides to. Phil's going to start it off here. He has a polluted delta he's going to sacrifice. And he's going to find some sort of blue land. He's going to Thought Scour Dan. Dan did scry to the top. So that's why Phil decided to Thought Scour his opponent and not himself, as you would normally see. Phil does go to 17. Dan has a tapped Stirring Wildwood and a pass of the turn. Phil draws for his turn. Oh, he also drew for Thought Scour there. Yeah, sure. Okay. Okay, so looking at, he's got Lightning Bolt to deal with this Grim Flare. Or it's not in play yet, sorry, my apologies. Yeah, so he'll have Lightning Bolt to deal with Grim Flare when it comes down. Here is a Serum Visions. Looks like he goes one top, one bottom. Yeah, I'm not super... I'm never really in love with Thought Scour on my opponent unless they like Serum Vision top. Then maybe, but I don't know. Phil plays out a copy of Steam Bends Tapped. We're going to go ahead and we're going to have a fetch land for Dan. And we're going to have the Grim Flare come down. He's looking for the land he wants here. It's going to have to be a black land of some variety. Might be a basic swamp. It is a basic swamp. So Dan falls to 19. Phil has a main phase Lightning Bolt to deal with the Flare, and then a pass the turn back after he played a mountain. So, all right, Dan, another land. His hand is 6 lands, so nothing to do here. Phil draws a copy of Tasigur. We're going to play a swamp. Tasigur is definitely castable. Phil is going to Thought Scour himself this time, which I definitely agree with. Mills over a copy of Serum Visions and a Polluted Delta. He's then going to go ahead and play this Tasigur out for 1 mana. 3, 4, 5 cards delved away. Dan drew a very timely Liliana here of the Veil. Now, if Phil has a counter spell, he can fight this. Let me look at what Phil has in terms of a counter suite. He's got 1 spell, so that won't do it. He's got a counter Squall, that won't do it. Logic Knot, he can't cast that. Crypt, he can't cast that. So this Liliana's going to resolve, and it's going to get to eat this Tasigur. I can't see Dan not casting Liliana here. The only thing Phil are presenting right now is Rune Snag or Mana Leak, neither of which are in his deck. Dan just passes back. That's got to be wrong. Here's an attack for 4, however. Dan falls to 15. Like, if you're worried about your opponent having a counterspell with 2 mana up, what are you worried about when they have 5 mana up? And now Tassigur's not even dead. Like, Phil can just sacrifice this Jace and not even worry about Liliana. He's going to kill it the turn after. I really would have liked to have seen him kill off the Tasigur last turn. Like, Dan doesn't have anything but Liliana and hand plus lands. He needs to do something. Another land for Dan. Like, you have to go for Liliana now. You can't just pass the turn again after playing a land. You need something in play. I mean, I guess now your thought could be, I don't want to play because it'll just die. Yeah, I don't know what he's going for here. Phil draws a copy of Spell Snare. That Torrential Gearhulk is in his hand. It's a 1-of in his list. He also has a Anger of the Gods and a card I can't quite get a good look at, but Dan's going to fire up his Vent here and block. Phil says with 4 blocks I'm going to push that. Dan falls to 11. I mean, shields are down. Phil can flip Jace here, which is very important. Okay, so Scavenging Ooze is going to come down, which is going to get spell snared. Yeah, this is just... You got to go for... you can't... You can still do it if Twilight Mire has in play, so you can still cast Liliana here. Yeah, he's going to go for it. It's going to resolve, so that's fine. Yeah, Liliana comes down, and she's going to go... I mean, you can put her on 1, and Phil has the choice of either losing the Jace he can flip this turn, or losing Tasigur. So, I mean... I think killing these creatures is fine. Yeah, Phil's going to go ahead and just get rid of his Jace. I mean, yeah. A land is drawn for Phil here. It is untapped, Sunken Hollow. So we have access to a Torrential Gear Hulk. Liliana's dead. Oh, no, she's not. Phil just says, I'm going to kill you. He has he has lethal this turn with that Gear Hulk in his hand. Dan did draw a copy of Lingering Souls, however, so that is going to stop that. And yeah, he's not in the worst spot. We're going to discard. Phil will discard his Anger of the Gods, which is insanely good for Dan now. Dan now gets to go ahead and play Lingering Souls and flash it back. And he's just way ahead. Yeah, there's the Lingering Souls. Yeah. I mean, ahead, maybe not ahead, but he is certainly not in as much trouble now. He now has multiple blockers to deal with this Tasigur. Liliana's going to get to stay in play. This is a good spot for Dan now. So, yeah, flash it back. I mean, you can't really fault Phil for discarding the Anger Gods, but he has to know that Dan has Lingering Souls. He's playing Abzan, so it's got to be there. We're going to go ahead and get a Tasigur activation and a turn. If I'm Dan, I just give him back probably Spell Snare or Serum Visions. Probably Spell Snare. Yep. That's fine. And you can play around Spell Snare very easily when you know it's there, so... Phil drew a second copy of Tasigur. That's not very exciting. Yeah, Dan in a good spot now, so... Draws a Tarmogoyf. That's going to walk into Spell Snare, but... I mean, that's fine. I guess you can... I guess you take up Liliana first, discard your land, and if he discards Spell Snare, slam a Goyf. Yeah, isn't it discard Tasigur, of course, so it's not a big surprise. There is some thought to be given here to just passing the turn back. Phil discarded an Anger. Again, knowing that Dan probably plays Lingering Soul somewhere in his 75. He plays, I believe, 4 of them, in fact. Yeah. So discarding Anger of the Gods means that he probably has something he wants to keep in his hand. And now it's between Spell Snare and that mystery card. So I think you're fine not playing Goyf here. And waiting until he potentially discards it to Liliana. Now, we are going to have Phil cast the Torrential Gear Hulk, it looks like here. He's going to kill Liliana, actually. That's yeah. I mean, he gets to play a Goyf post-combat, which isn't bad. Because Dan's going to go ahead, Phil's going to get this island, fall to 16. He's going to Gear Hulk, target Lightning Bolt is my guess. He's going to Lightning Bolt Liliana, and then Gear Hulk block the Stirring Wildwood. And then Dan gets to go ahead and play a Tarmogoyf afterwards. Yeah, Phil says, yeah, kill that. Which is not bad for Dan. I mean, Goyf is clear to resolve. Did he not cast the Goyf? He did not cast Tarmogoyf. What? You know your opponent has Spell Snare. Why are you not casting Tarmogoyf? He's got Planeswalker, Instant, Sorcery, Land, Creature. You would have had a 5/6 Goyf. What? I'm so confused. Spell snare. No spell snare here, but that's fine. 5-6 goif. Cryptic Command, tap your board. Dan's seen enough here. Scoops it up. Phil takes down game 1. Moving to the sideboards, we'll start with Dan here. Dan has a copy of Engineer Explosives, 2 copies of Surgical Extraction, a copy of Collective Brutality, a Zealous Persecution, 3 Stony Silence, a Maelstrom Pulse, 3 Fulminator Mages, a Damnation, a Gideon Ally of Zendikar, and a Thrun the Last Troll. So if I'm Dan here, Thrun seems fine. Gideon seems good. Maelstrom Pulse seems okay. Yeah, probably fine. Brutality seems good. Surgical seems okay. A few different options there for Dan. Phil's side of the field. Phil has 2 copies of Ancestral. That doesn't really tell me what it is. I'm assuming Ancestral Visions is the card he's playing there. Cody, no, I forgot because we were trying to fix the camera. So I will get it for you next round. So 2 Ancestral Visions, 2 Dispels, a Thoughtseize, 2 Fulminator Mages, a Surgical Extraction, a Ceremonious Rejection, a Vandal Blast, 2 Collective Brutality, a Damnation, an Anger of the Gods, and an Engineer Explosives. So from Phil's side of the field, I like the Ancestral Visions. I like the Thoughtseize. Surgical could be okay. I like Damnation probably. Anger of the Gods isn't bad against the Spirit tokens. Yeah, so some interest for both. Okay, I had more than one job. Thank you very much. I had to fix my camera, which we couldn't do because we have to like turn the stream off and stuff, which we're going to try and do for the next round, but don't be sassing me. All right, so players just shuffling up here for game 2. Dan looks like he has quite a few sideboard cards he's debating between here. I think Dan could have had... I mean, he had a rough mull of 6. His 6 wasn't very exciting. I think he definitely could have fought that better. That Tassiger shouldn't have been around as long as it was. And he also could have had a Goif in play a turn sooner than it was. But, I mean, Phil still had a very good draw. But we'll see what happens here. See if Dan can force the game 3 or if Phil's able to take it down in 2 here. Again, these players are 2-0. So they are playing for 3-0 and likely a double draw into top 8. Cut the top 8, a field of 25 players. 3-0 and 2 should make the cut. But we'll have to... Not a guarantee, of course. All right, Dan looks at his opening 7 here. He has a Hierarch. I believe he had a Blooming Marsh. I think it's a one-lander. Yeah, I think he has a one-lander with... He's got some good cards, though. It looks like he has a Sorin in there. Is that Sorin or... It must be Gideon, right? He mulligans, looks at the top card of the deck. It was a land, so... A little rough, but... Is he playing Sorin somewhere? I thought that was... He is. He's playing a one of Sorin in his main deck. Interesting. Sorin, a Solemn Visitor. Alright, Dan, down to 6 here. It looks like Phil has kept his 7. So no real struggle there. Yeah, this hand looks fine. 2 lands, Scavenging Ooze, Lingering Souls, Surgical Extraction, and I believe Tarmogoyf. Has all his colors with these 2 lands as well. Alright, Dan Scries goes to the top. I mean, we could see Phil Thought Scour his opponent again. I don't think Phil has a copy of it. That might be the back of his hand there. I'm not entirely sure, but... Alright, Dan is going to start things off here with a copy of Blooming Marsh, I believe. Or, sorry, Verdant Catacombs. Passes to Phil. Phil has a Polluted Delta. He is going to Thought Scour him again. That's interesting. I really don't like Thought Scouring my opponent. Like, your deck has Delve cards. I don't care if you got the card on top of your deck. Like, all right, Dan falls to 19. He's gonna go get some sort of, I imagine, a shock land into play tapped here. I would assume some sort of green-black one, namely Overgrown Tomb. Seeing as how that's the only one that's legal and modern that you can fetch. No bayous here, but all right, there is that Overgrown Tomb. So Dan has access this turn if he wants. He can either play a Tarmogoyf or he can play a Scavenging Ooze. I like playing Tarmogoyf because it's a 3/4. Yeah, I mean, you're playing against a Goyf deck and you're just giving him fuel in his graveyard. I really don't like that. Dan draws a 3rd land. I don't think Scooz is a good play here. Scooz is okay. Yeah, exactly. I just think... Dan's deck uses the graveyard just as well as Phil's does. So, I mean, it's not like you're not hurting your opponent by milling his cards. Phil has a Scalding Tarn, which is going to go ahead and sacrifice immediately. Falls to 18. Dan did go with Tarmogoyf. It's a 3/4, so it's out of bolt range. Phil looks to just get a Scalding Tarn into play, or a Steam Vent into play tapped, rather. Might have been untapped. Let's see. No, I think he's Serum Visioning here, yeah. Phil does Serum Vision in the correct order there. You definitely don't want to fetch after the vision. Yeah, fetching the basic island's a little strange. I imagine if he's doing that, his hand has quite a few lands to fix that. But I also don't really like that. So Tarmogoyf is now a 4/5 thanks to the addition of sorcery. So this Tarmogoyf is getting harder and harder to kill for Phil. Is he playing any copies of Terminate? Phil's gonna fall to 14 here. He's got 2 copies of Terminate in his deck here, it looks like. So Dan plays Lingering Souls. Gets a couple of those into play, and he's in a good spot again. Polluted Delta for Phil. Ace the Creator, no, he is not on Blood Moon. So, yeah, why he fetched an island, I have no idea. No, that's not... No, it's not that Phil, Jay. This is Phil Hurst. So Phil sacrifices the Polluted Delta, gets a tapped Watery Grave. No Terminate in hand, clearly for him. I think I saw 2 copies of Lightning Bolt. He also has 2 Fatal Pushes to deal Tarmogoyf very easily. Another Serum Visions comes down. Couple cards to the bottom. Oh, Souls is so good against this deck. Yeah. Which is why I was a little... I mean, I wasn't surprised because it was between Gearhulk and Anger of the Gods. But... yeah, I mean... Not fetching a black, yeah, is a pretty big sign. Oh, yes, Jay, 25 players today. As Nadio, what's interesting here, man? I'm curious. I mean, there's lots of interesting lines being taken here this game, you know, for sure. Another attack here for 6. So Phil's going to fall to 7. Scalding Tarn was the land. He could have Cryptic Commander. I don't think he does, though. He's got a lot of red cards and some blue cards there, but... another attack for 6 coming across. Phil's going to bolt a Lingering Souls. No, he's going to bolt the Tarmogoyf. He's going to kill the Tarmogoyf the hard way. All right, sure. Phil falls to 6 from the fetch land. Dan is going to surgically extract something. Phil is going to Snapcaster. Now, I don't know when he's surgically extracting. Here's the issue. There's a second Lightning Bolt. Okay, so I believe he was surgically extracting in response to the fetch land. Oh, okay, good to know, Azaz. If you have any questions, feel free to ask, man. We have some helpful members in our chat, and I'll do what I can to help, of course, as well. Phil looks like he only has 3 copies of Bolt post-board. There are 4 on his list here, so there is a 4 that's in his sideboard at this point. Unless Dan just missed it, of course. Nope. All right. So Dan looks to have paid life as well, down to 15. Yeah, so the Snapcaster, if I'm not mistaken, will still have... Jay, he was doing it in response to the fetch land. So the Snapcaster could target it, but it wouldn't do anything. So if I'm not mistaken, I believe the Snapcaster can still target a spell here. Phil will fall to 4 as well from this attack. The spirits will connect. So Dan can't play that Liliana, which is a little awkward. He also can't play Fulminator Mage because he only has 1 black source. But he can flashback Lingering Souls, which is just fine here. So Logic Knot is drawn for Phil. That's not very exciting. Dan's going to fall to 15 from the Snapcaster attack. Phil does have Cryptic Command, which Dan knows about, of course. So, I mean, he'll go to attack here. Phil's going to tap his board and draw a card, is my guess. And then Dan will be able to resolve a spell if he has one to resolve. Yeah, Dan says combat. Phil says I'll tap your board and draw. Phil, at this point, really just buying time. He needs to find a solid answer. He has, again, 2 copies of Anger of the Gods, I imagine, at this point. He has access to 2 in his 75. I would not be surprised to see them in this matchup. Both of them. As Cody in our chat pointed out there, Lingering Souls is a hard card for this deck to deal with. Anger of the Gods is the answer to that. So Dana's going to play, it looks like, Scavenging Ooze here, which is fine. That is an Altered Snapcaster Hunter, yes. Priorities are in order, sir. Very good. Very good. Here comes an attack for 2 more. Dan falls to 13. That's fine. Phil needs something to deal with this board again, and I don't think he has it. He doesn't have enough mana to Snapcaster Cryptic Command. If he has another Snapcaster, that is. He's also 1 mana short of being able to cast that Torrential Gearhulk to Cryptic Command, so I think he's just dead. I don't know if he has Snapcaster on. If he does have Snapcaster, it won't matter actually because he can't block these flyers. Phil is going to Thought Scour himself. Mills over Damnation and a Snapcaster Mage. Tubbs Malloy, thank you for that follow. We appreciate it, man. I will make sure you get your 10% off discount code to top8gaming.com. Welcome to the channel. Yeah, I think Dan was ahead there. Scooz, of course, has everything covered as well, thanks to its ability to eat whatever Phil targets. So, yeah, he's in a good spot no matter what happens there. Yeah, he's fine. All right, so we have a game of 3 coming up. We have a game 3 here. Phil will, of course, get to play this game, so that is pretty important. What does he have in terms of turn 1 hand interaction? What do we got here? We've got 2 Inquisition of Kozilek and the 1 Thoughtseize in his sideboard. So he's not really going to be interacting with Dan's hand more than likely. Hunter, we have 25 players, so we have 5 rounds of Swiss, and we have a cut the top 8. I assume the player you're rooting for, namely McCormick, was 1-1 going into this round. He won his first round, but then lost number 2. So, all right. So, game 3 here. Lots of time to play here. No concerns here. There shouldn't be any concerns here of a draw. I don't know if that's true or not, but maybe. All right. So Phil looks at his opening 7. Both players keeping this time, so Dan gets to keep his 7. He drew Thrun. That is a big one. If he can stick that, he's in a good spot. I mean, so Ace, you must be local, is my guess. If you know how Dan is. Dan has a very good opener here. Oh, Phil did not Thought Scour Dan in response. I'm surprised. Dan falls to 18. Looking at Kolaghan's Command, Thought Scour, Torrential Gearhulk, a Sulphur Falls, and a Polluted Delta. I mean, I think you're just taking a Kolaghan's Command here. That has the most value for him. I don't imagine you're taking a Thought Scour when there's 2 copies in his hand. It is a card draw spell, but I just don't think that's worth it. Yeah, I agree. Kolaghan's Command is taken here. So Phil left with 2 Thought Scours, a Gearhulk, and 2 lands. I imagine we're seeing Phil end of turn Thought Scour. I'm hoping himself. Yep. Goes for himself. Hits a Snapcaster Mage and a Creeping Tar Pit. He drew a copy of English Code. That's not a bad draw. He's going to fire it off here. So Dan has Thrun, Marsh Flats, Lingering Souls, Liliana, Thoughtseize, and Fulminator Mage. So if I'm Phil, I'm probably taking Liliana here. You could also take Thoughtseize if you want to protect your own hand. I don't know. Dan says take this one. Phil says no. Yeah, he takes Liliana here. Phil drew a Snapcaster as well for his turn. So, yeah, he's going to have access next turn if he wants to Snapcaster Inquisition. Dan drew a Tarmogoyf, which is pretty good. I like playing that one here for sure. That would allow... How big's the Goyf? Planeswalker instant, sorcery, land, creature. I like a 5/6 on turn 2. It's not bad. Especially when you know your opponent has no answer to it in hand. I guess there's one card he doesn't know about, so maybe he has an answer, but yeah. Alright, let's see. What do we got? I think Tarmogoyf is definitely the pick. Dan just trying to decide what land he wants to get. I think with the fact that you don't have another land in hand right now, yeah, you get Galdus Shrine for sure. You need your colors. I don't think you're worried about dying to damage, so not right now at least. Phil only has a third land in hand that we know about, so yeah, there we go. Tarmogoyf comes down. I like that one. And Phil, no trouble to let it resolve, so he's going to go ahead, mill himself, gets rid of, I believe, a Bloodstained Mire and a Serum Visions. Then we have an untap here, so let's see what Phil plays. Now, the land we knew about was Polluted Delta, so we'll see if that's the land he plays here. We're going to start with a Thought Scour again, and we're going to hit an Inquisition and a Serum Visions. So, Phil, I believe, is just digging for an answer to Tarmogoyf right now. And I don't think he's found one. I also don't think Goyf grew any bigger from all that milling. The only ones missing right now are Artifact, Enchantment, and Tribal. So... Dan did not find a third land, but he does have access this turn to Thoughtseize and Noble Hierarch, which I think is very good. So he's going to start with a Thoughtseize, which I agree with. Then he can play Hierarch and attack for 6. Phil's going to show him 2 Steam Vents, a Snapcaster, and a Torrential Gearhulk. I think I just take Snapcaster Mage and leave him with a Gearhulk that he can't cast, for sure. Dan does fold a 15, of course, from the Thoughtseize, or 13 rather, from the Thoughtseize. I just take the Snapcaster Mage. It just has so much more value to it. And this Gearhulk just does nothing right now. Yeah, Hierarch and 6 you. Sure, seems good. I mean, I guess there was an idea there to take the Gearhulk, because that would have given you a 6th card type, but I still don't think it was worth it. Phil is going to fall to 11 from this attack. Untap. He draws another land for the turn, so he's going to have access to Gearhulk, but it's going to be too late, I think. Ace, sorry, yes, he does have mismatched Snapcaster Mages. He has, I believe, just the one RPT key promo. He has some regular ones, and he has an altered one, so... Lingering Souls seems like a good play this turn. I think Dan's debating if he wants to play Fulminator Mage. I guess he does, sure. Why not? Kill one of Dan's land or Phil's lands, sure, I guess. Yep, there's Lingering Souls. There's 2 spirits. Phil's gonna sacrifice a land. He has to find an answer now to this Tarmogoyf, or he is just dead. No, Hunter, everyone gets points. So for every match win, you would normally get 3 points, but we have a 6 times multiplier. So for every match win you get 18 points towards our invitational seats. Phil plays another land. I think we just have game here. He needed to draw push exactly, and he did not. So push terminate, I guess. So yeah, Dan takes it down here in 3.